Good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you. I am Gomati and I lead the projects and client relationship for VAS UAE, and I shall be your host for today's session. For those of you who are active on the platform, will know that VAS does regular employer connect sessions, which provides access to insights of top leaders from large organizations across various topics relating to HR, finance, technology, etc. In today's session, we'll discuss about infusion of DI at Honeywell. Talking about diversity, I remember reading an article recently which mentioned a report by Fleshman Hillard, which states that 90% of the respondents in the APAC region expect companies to act and communicate about DEI, and only 3% remember getting any information on the same. The report also showcases the need for organizations to rethink the way it interacts with its stakeholders. Diversity is not a new concept. A lot of companies are making headway in this space. And what this brings out is that it is time for companies to also communicate what it does in the space of DEI. Today, Honeywell is not only communicating about its DEI journey to its employees, but also to the population outside. Honeywell, as we all know, is a multinational conglomerate and is one of the most reputed technology organizations of the world. It is into aerospace, which includes avionics, light management system, which includes aircraft engines. It is also into building technologies, providing environmental and energy solutions. It provides performance materials to organizations and is also into safety and productivity solutions. Like all of you, I'm equally interested to know what Honeywell does in the space of DEI, what are the various initiatives that is running in the organization, what are the barriers it has, etc. So without any further delay, let me quickly introduce the speakers of the session to you. Joining us first is Ms. Ranjani. Ms. Ranjani is a senior director at Honeywell Technology Solutions India, leading R&D transformation globally for Honeywell. She has 28 years of experience in business transformation in electronics and industrial software and has worked extensively in semiconductors and consumer electronics industry, driving R&D with multi-site management, engineering operations, process automation and digitization. Welcome, Ranjani.
Thank you, Governor.
Joining us next is Mr. Abhishek Kumar, who's currently leading talent acquisition COE for Honeywell Asia Pacific region as Senior Director. He's been instrumental in building exceptional talent for Honeywell, driving inclusion and diversity. Across Honeywell businesses, he's taken diverse roles with increasing responsibilities across Honeywell strategic business group and has established himself as a strong business partner to drive business performance and is a Six Sigma Green Belt certified professional. Warm welcome to you, Abhishek.
Thank you.
Joining us next is Deepthi, is a HR professional with 18 years of experience across talent acquisition, change management, global entity setups, employer branding, job mapping, and competency framework. She has significant experience in adapting to different stages of an organization maturity cycle and offers solutions that work best for the organization and people to the specific stage. She focuses on DEI throughout the organization life cycle and she's passionate to align firms' goals with talent goals, contribute to ROI via talent, and enhance future readiness by hiring, growing, nurturing the right mindset. A warm welcome to you, Deepu.
Thank you.
Let's start off with this session. Abhishek, my first question is to you. Can you share what DEI means to Honeywell and what is it? How is it important?
Thanks, Gomti, for this opportunity. I think Honeywell is doing a lot in this space. So at Honeywell, our goal is to employ one of the world's greatest, most diverse and global mindset workforce, right? Which enables Honeywell to build a smarter, safer, and more sustainable world, right? In order to do this, we must leverage our unique talents, background, skill, and perspective. And this is why inclusion and diversity is one of our fundamental values at Honeywell. We practice inclusive leadership behavior at all levels, and we have created an environment based on trust, respect, and open communication, which is very, very fundamental to support D&I in any organization, right? Now, if I really talk about Honeywell broadly and what are the different initiatives which we are doing in this particular space, the one very popular one is the Employee Resource Group, which we call ERG. And across globe, there are almost like 9 different ERGs which is available. And for our region and geography, the most popular one which I can name if it's a women network, the LGBTQ plus, and all abilities network, which is prominent in our geography. And this actually provides a platform for employees to connect, share their experiences, promote diversity and inclusion within the company. In addition to that, Honeywell is also, big time in developing our leaders as an inclusive leaders. So lot many trainings and development which we encourage people to go through, lot of programs which we do run, which improves the leadership style and make them much more inclusive leadership. The another point which is more important from a strategic direction perspective, Honeywell has constituted appropriate governance across the board, which is at a global, regional, and country level, which we call it kind of DNI, councils. We do have country level councils, regional level at APAC, and also global level councils. They are actually supporting the strategic directions and overseeing the company's approach around the diversity and inclusion efforts. If I also talk about my own function, which is talent acquisition, we are making sure that every positions or opportunities which we have, whether we have created enough diverse slate or not. So, in spite of looking at a representation, we are making sure that the funnel pipeline is very, very strong, and we have seen the correlation between the diversity of slate to the representation. And that's the reason what we are doing. We are focusing much more on creating more and more slates against the opportunity which we do get. So these are various initiatives which we do. And since you talked about the importance, again, Honeywell recognizes that diversity, equity, and inclusion are very critical to its business success. We bring diversity of skill set, experience, thoughts at one place, which finally leads to new idea, services, challenges the status quo, and really make a very, very new proposition for the business through the innovation. The another element which I will mention here is the growth mindset. I think when employees feel that they are valued, they are included in the decisions, they are well engaged, and we all know that engaged workforce leads to growth, organic growth in the organization, right? So overall, if I sum up, there are a lot many initiatives which Honeywell is committed to drive inclusion and diversity at a workplace. This is not only restricted at a leadership level, but every one of us practice this on day-to-day basis. So it's not about preaching, it's just about practicing in everyday's life what Honeywell is believing in it, right? So that's what I will say, what it means to Honeywell and its importance, which we feel at this moment, providing innovation and growth to the organization.
Thanks, Abhishek, for sharing those initiatives. It's a follow-up question. So, you had talked about various initiatives that are being followed at Honeywell. I wanted to know what do you think is the role of top leaders in driving these DEI initiatives?
Again, I will say, as I said, like it's not about only a top leader. I will say every one of us are equally responsible in driving diversity and inclusion, because only if top leadership is committed, I am not sure whether we will really live the vision of making diverse and inclusive behavior at the organization. Now, some of the things which top management should be really worried about or should be doing it and their roles in it is definitely evaluating the policies and procedures across the organization, right? Some of the policies you may have heard about, the anti-discrimination policies and all, probably make sure that the company is supported through these policies to encourage the diversity and inclusion worldwide. The another element which the top management can do is probably providing an environment of training and development, right? So one of the element which I will tell you which supports diversity and inclusion at workplace is really, make sure that we run a curriculum around unconscious bias. Now, let's accept that this unconscious bias remains in everyone. The important element is how we train our people so that they don't have a negative impact because of this unconscious biasness. And the leadership team has to be committed around the whole environment getting created on training and development of people. Another thing which top management can do is foster an inclusive culture. Definitely, it's not about only communication. I believe it's communication, collaborations, and also respect, which we have to provide to employees, and that creates the inclusive culture across the organization. While I talked about much on the top management, but the middle management and even at a manager level, the responsibility, the accountability is equally there. I do see in Honeywell that the managers are leading by examples. They are not only supporting at the time of recruitment or acquisition of talent, but even to develop, nurture them, uh, and providing them growth opportunity, the career opportunity is what managers are doing in a everyday's life, right? And that's the reason what I will say is while top managements are providing the environment, the infrastructure, the manager are actually executing that in the daily life, right? So that's what I can say from a roles and responsibility of top management and middle or lower level management in the whole DNI space.
Rightly said, Abhishek. It is not, DA is just not restricted to top management, but the middle management also comes into play when it comes to implementation of the various initiatives. Uh, I will ask my next question to Ranjani. Ranjani, you're part of the Honeywell DA Council. So, what are some of the hurdles that you face while you're advocating for DEI, and how do you overcome some of these hurdles that you faced?
Sure, Gomati. Thanks for inviting, and it's a pleasure to be talking on this subject. So, as Abhishek mentioned very clearly, prioritizing diversity, equity, inclusion at every level of organization is vital for improving the employee morale or company's culture and also overall growth. Now, with respect to hurdles, there are a few things that I have personally observed is to keep up the momentum and consistency. See, creating DI, groups and celebrating diversity days is great, but what happens after that? So people will look around if they're not seeing progress, and that progress goes beyond creating these groups and includes all aspects, be it hiring, retention, policies, how we are taking care and nurturing, and we do that, very diligently at Honeywell. And next, I would say is often budget restrictions can also cause some hurdles. What happens when you get pushed back on your budget? How can you work around that and still deliver an effective program? So, the most effective way to address budgetary concerns is to build a business case that connects to organizational values. So, in the same way, how we deliver data to justify that, we will have to make sure our D&I initiatives should be a priority and we justify the details of our budget and the outcome that comes from it. Lastly, I mean, there are many things, but I think I'm ranking them. Importantly, when it comes to managing the program implementation of DNI, the struggle to connect the dots between the best intentions and the tangible results. I think that is where it is very critical. Tying these strategic program goals to clearly defined metrics. So we all have metrics, but are these metrics necessarily contributing to solving real problems? And that's very important to expand representation in the hiring process, have adequate support to retain growth and that talent. So I would say if we align the DNI goals to companies' mission and vision to have a very inclusive and equitable workplace, it is be very successful.
Thank you, Ranjani. To summarize what you said, some of the hurdles that we face are budget restrictions, keeping up the momentum of what we started off, and tying the strategy goals to the metrics that we have. So, thanks for that insight, Ranjani. I also wanted to talk about this one to you. As one of the senior women leader in the engineering space, what do you think are some of the challenges that has resulted in the gender imbalance?
Yeah. So first is the anemic or the leaky pipeline that we see. The more you climb the corporate ladder, there are few women that you see. I mean, so we really need a lot of women leaders on the top. Then there are a lot of biases, societal expectations regarding the gender roles. Women tend to play, at household and also at office, and then they, start doing a perfect mother, perfect wife, perfect employee, and that adds to a lot of stress, resulting in a lot of women dropping out of their career. And also hiring team, we also overlook a women for a high profile job or project because they think it is too much responsibility after recently having a baby. So these are all again the biases that we come across. And especially in the STEM, at the education also at the STEM level, we see that the women make up maybe only 20 to 25% of the workforce. And there are very few role models, women role models in STEM. And I would also say the confidence of women to raise hands for higher level jobs is very low. I mean, women, we all think that we need to match 100% for that job. And whereas, a lot of men raise hands even if there's 60% match. So even that confidence also has to go up for us to go to the higher levels. So these are all I put that, as the maybe the top, what I see as the reasons for this gender imbalance.
Rightly said, Ranjani. I agree with you more. Um, my next question is to Deepthi. Deepthi, how do you champion gender diversity at Honeywell?
Thanks, Gomti. I think a lot of you know ideas or thoughts have been shared by Ranjan and Abhishek, and if I have to kind of funnel them down, so the way to champion diversity is to link it back to the goal that Abhishek alluded to in the beginning, which was about employing the most diverse talent base. And the way we do it or the way we champion it, on the ground is actually looking at all the 3 to 4 pillars of an employee's life cycle. So the first pillar happens to be talent acquisition, and there we are constantly working towards how do we ensure that there is a fair representation of gender, that there is a fair representation of gender um, across the across the board and across the skills, right? So that's another stereotyping that we are trying to avoid. The other is for retention. Now, when we create a culture wherein we urge people to bring their authentic selves to work, it urges them to be more creative and more comfortable, and hence you kind of take care of having a diverse organization thrive or work in the organization. So that's the second pillar, and the third pillar is development. Development means that we are focused towards identifying people who have the aspirations to move on to the next level. And how do you create a focus group of women and put them into a very structured and methodical program so that they can upskill themselves And as Ranjani said, right, he raise hands for bigger and better roles. So I think these are the three key pillars or key ways how we champion diversity um, in India when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thanks for that, Deepthi. In throughout the employee life cycle, we need interventions, and constant learning is a key there. We need to educate ourselves as well for us to educate others. So that is one of so across talent acquisition, learning development, so across all areas we need to keep educating the various workforces and what exactly, all the women leaders, how do we actually have, we need to, as Ranjani was saying, we need to have more women role models. So
Yeah.
right from the stage when we have junior women leaders, we'll have to start kind of putting them into various training programs, show them the role models, show them the career path. So that was an interesting one. So the next question again is to Deepti. So what do you think are some of these special initiatives that Honeywell has taken on diversity?
Sure. And this is where I really like it. And again, alluding to both what Ranjani and Abhishek said. So there is a strategic mindset that Honeywell Global has set. And the beauty is that how are we executing it on ground? So I'm very humbled to share some unique and bespoke initiatives that we undertake. So there is one that we refer to as Reconnect, and the heart of the program is, and this is, I'll talk about development a little later, but Reconnect genuinely attaches itself to embrace equity as a cause. So Reconnect is for women who are going on family leave and return after some time or do not return, right? So this program was started a few years back with the thought that how do we ensure that our women folk who are going on family way are welcomed back, they feel comfortable when they join back. So this program kind of helps them during their pre-journey, during when they welcome the child, and post journey. And there is a buddy, there's a mentorship structured programs that helps them to get back to corporate life and seamlessly settle into that. So that's one that we really that kind of also attaches itself to the retention bucket that I earlier spoke about, right? The other unique initiative is towards development, which we refer to as Aspire, and it's about kind of focusing on women who are in that cusp of wherein they've given some years to the corporate life and are also kind of dealing with, as Ranjini mentioned, societal pressures. Maybe they got married, or they have ailing parents, or the husband relocated, all of that, right? So that particular time of a life is where Aspire as a program really helps women, wherein we enable a very methodical, process driven upskilling program, which they undergo and then are able to take up larger and bigger roles in the organization. So Aspire as a program caters to women development. We've recently, and when I say recently, it's been a year or so, wherein we launched Restart as a program, which actually looks forward to welcome women back after a career break. So that's another special one that we hold very close, and I think it also relates to embracing equity in a very special manner because you're giving a platform to people to come back and welcome them back into the corporate life. So these three programs, I would suggest, Gomati, are very close to us. We spoke, and we kind of build on it year on year. The other thing that I would want to just mention is the well-being aspect of an employee life cycle. Now, within well-being, what we've done is we've enabled a whole lot of sessions through sometimes public speakers, sometimes through our own empaneled vendors, wherein we pick up areas wherein our women folk want to kind of learn more. So, for example, financial acumen, and if you look at our society, women were not really into the core of managing finances for themselves, for their families, so on and so forth. So we are enabling some of these core areas so that this formal education which is imparted to them, and hence it actually gives them an edge to make better decisions in life, whether it's corporate wise or personal. So I think these three programs plus the well-being aspect is something that we really hold very close to our hearts and run them for our women population.
Thanks, Deepthi, for mentioning the key initiatives that Honeywell is undertaking. So, to summarize what you said, the three programs that are very close to Honeywell's is Reconnect, Aspire, which is focusing on upskilling, Restart, which is on returning women, and also a well-being program, which is being focused for women employees in the organization. So, really interesting to know more about the initiatives that Honeywell is. So, coming next to Ranjani. Ranjani, the theme of IWD is digital innovation and tech for gender equality. So, what does gender equity mean to you? Often the terms equality and equity are interchangeably used. So, can you throw some light on the same?
Sure. Actually, Deepthi touched some aspects, but I'll give you my perspective of that. Gender equity means respecting all people without discrimination, regardless of their gender. So, a couple of examples let me try to illustrate with. So, let's start with gender equity at home. Home is where people spend most of their time and is often the first place where children learn gender discrimination. Girls are typically taught that women are responsible for cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, and all the other household chores, while men are not responsible for many outside of their yard work. So, this mindset has been a disadvantage for women for a long time. One way parents can practice gender equity in the home is by assigning chores to their children of all genders equally to them, teaching them domestic responsibilities with the goal of preparing them to take care of their future homes as adults. Now, when we speak about gender equity in workplace, so gender equity in workplace would be where men, women, and all gender identities shaping their career path they want and being afforded the same opportunities, including promotions, leadership roles, projects, and more, without their gender being a deciding factor in the workplace decisions. So, the way I'll put that is equality is about sameness, promotes fairness and justice by giving everyone the same thing. It will work if everyone starts from the same place. But equity is about fairness. It's about making sure people get access to the same opportunities. Sometimes our differences or history can create barriers to participation. So we must ensure equity before we can enjoy equality. So the way to look at is equality is the end goal and equity is the way to get there.
Thanks, Ranjani, for clarifying the same. I mean, it was really, I mean, right from starting from home to workspace. So, how does equity and equality actually, how is it different as these two as a terms? Thanks for clarifying that. And my next question is to Abhishek. Abhishek, can you please give us some examples on how Honeywell has embraced equity?
Yeah, so I think if I really talk about Honeywell has taken a multifaceted approach to embrace equity. And the very first thing is commitment at a top leadership or at a corporate level. And we all have been hearing about ESG reports, environmental, social, and governance commitment made by many companies, right? And if you really go through the ESG commitment which Honeywell has made, one of the commitment is towards diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? So what I'm saying is, from a Honeywell corporate perspective, board perspective, this is one of the commitment included in the environmental, social, and governance commitment, right? So that itself shows the full buying of the entire organizations towards this. The another element which I will add on, and we have been discussing about this diversity and inclusion initiatives. Um, the company has set up various ERG group, which I was mentioning, the 9 ERG group, which is there across globe. Now, this is also a kind of example that how we are building different platforms to help different groups inside Honeywell. So, when we are talking about diversity at this moment, one of the element is a gender diversity, but we do have, across globe, people of color, LGBTQ, all abilities, and there is a very curated group which has been called out for. And almost, I will tell you, at this moment in this 9 group which is there across Honeywell, almost there are 10,000 to 11,000 people who are part of it. So it's again, what I'm trying to say is, when it comes to embracing equity, it's one commitment made by Honeywell as a corporate, but at the same time, through different platforms which Honeywell has extended to their employees, there are almost 10 to 11,000 employees who has participated and being a member of these groups. So it's like everybody is in it while it's embracing equity at a Honeywell level. Now, there are another element which is also getting very popular at this point in time is the supplier diversity, right? So even Honeywell has made commitment to supplier diversity by seeking out and doing business with minority owned or women owned businesses across globe, right? So and then when we talk about doing the CSR and all, this is another channel where the organization is committed to really improve or tie up with the organization who is promoting equity and social justice outside. So not only Honeywell is doing directly through the ESG report, through the different channels which we have created internally, but also we are going externally by having a supplier diversity in our agenda, having a organization tie up through CSR who are promoting equity and social justice all across, right? So it's not only internal, but also we are taking consideration of the external partners who are helping us in embracing the equity at a global level, right? And definitely India is part of it.
Thanks, Abhishek. So that was a big one. So DEI at Honeywell, DEI is part of the ESG, and you also concentrate on supply diversity and also on part of CSR. So that's very interesting to know. So my next question is to Deepthi. So Deepthi, what are the future plans of Honeywell to further invest in DEI space?
Sure. So, we certainly want to sustain and be robust in the interventions that I spoke about, which was reconnect, aspire, and restart. Right? We want to continue to do that and and sustain ourselves. So that's one. The other bit that we are very conscious about, and again, it ties back to the ESG agenda, is kind of investing from ground up. So one is, of course, we want to do good, and we want to be kind of equitable to the workforce that is entering Honeywell and currently exists in Honeywell, but also contributing to the society that how can we enable more girls to take up STEM education. And I feel very humbled to share this, that as we are talking, we work very closely through our CSR teams with the ICT Academy, wherein we actually help women kind of explore more careers STEM education. So we want to kind of upgrade that and take it to a scale by scale as years come. That's something that we are certainly looking in the future. The other bit is that we work with certain NGOs who kind of prepare women in again non-traditional STEM roles, if so much to say. So that's another initiative that we are running for society at large. And going forward, coming back to Honeywell once again, we really want to break the stereotypes when it comes to some gender roles. So if you look at the organizations, generally you see a whole lot of women in corporate or corporate functions, right, which are probably non-revenue generating functions, right? They're very critical, but you see women more in those functional domains, right? What we are trying to change within Honeywell is that we are trying to kind of break the stereotype and say, okay, we would want women who come with that skill set or who have aspirations or show competence. We really want them to take a field and front jobs. So that's something that we are planning for future. So to answer your question, Gomati, sustain what we have, make it robust, give back to society, ensure that more women, more girl childs are kind of have a broader horizon and take steps, and break some stereotypes. So that those are pretty much our future plans.
That's really interesting, Deepthi. So, my next question will be on returnee women, since you had mentioned that that is part of your one of the major initiatives that you have. So, can you throw some light on the initiatives that you have for returnee women?
Yeah, yeah. So we realize that when there is a little gap. Yeah, right. And what has happened over the last 5 years is that there's so much of disruption that if there was a software that you were used to or you were using, there are maybe three iterations to that are happening, right? And someone who's had a break might have lost on that learning. So, what we enable in a returnee women format is that we ensure that there is a buddy mentor mechanism for a set period of time, so that there is a learning that happens on the job, and the person is able to kind of pick up by looking at it. It's not a curriculum, it's not a book based program, but it's actually on the job that enables women candidates, since we're talking from that perspective, more confident to kind of do by hands, make mistake, course correct, and then kind of go back to the mentor, report out, and kind of take it maybe next step and not make mistakes again. So I think a mentorship program is something that we focus on when it comes to returnee women.
Thanks, Deepthi. Deepthi. One thing that I wanted to check is also on the bias that we were talking about. So, unconscious bias is something that is there across various organizations. So, how do you tackle unconscious bias? So, is there any programs that you run? So, I leave this question open to Abhishek or Deepthi who wants to answer.
Yeah, so let me attempt first, and then I will invite my colleagues to comment on this. Again, let's agree that this is there in everyone's mind, right? Because, and this is very, very genuine, because we know scientifically that 11 million pieces of information comes at one time, and only 40 to 50 can be processed. The rest of the decisions are somewhere influenced by unconscious bias, and that simply means that first, the acknowledgement of this fact has to be there across the organization, and for that particular purpose, we do have different programs in Honeywell to educate managers, and managers at a different level, because there are many managers who are first time manager. There are some people who are with Honeywell for a long time and then getting into a managerial role, or even getting into a leadership positions, right? So we do have programs on unconscious bias. We do have accelerator as a operating system with us, where we have these kind of capsules available for the managers to go through, learn it. The another element is it's not like a one way kind of training. It's like a simulation based too. So it's a mix of various methodology of training. We are also making sure that there is a refresh training happens for each manager. And when this is unconscious bias element, we not only talk about during the talent acquisition time, but even the development of team or career progression. During those time also, there are unconscious bias which plays a kind of critical role, and people should be aware about those unconscious bias. So I think at different stages, we do have pulled out those like cases. We do provide these trainings to managers based on different case simulations. There are many case studies which we have enabled team to go through, and also there is a structured program which runs in the organization to minimize the impact of unconscious bias in the organization. I invite my colleague Rajni and Dipti to add on further.
Sure, Abhishek. I think you summarized it well. So, Gomati, what I can say is that I mean there are a lot of even some kind of a barriers even for us. I mean multiple barriers, even sometimes very attitudinal barriers as well. You might look at a co-worker with a visible disability and unconsciously assume that that person also has intellectual disabilities or needs assistance to do simple tasks. I think these are some things that we are so conditioned to process information and make decisions based on pre-existing assumptions. And these are some things that we are also driving very consciously, and how we can walk that talk and not necessarily play a lip service. And for many, another example I can tell you about a social barrier, like a group of people can go to a restaurant or celebrate the completion of a project. It's not officially a work event, but when you do that, there may be certain set of people, even women and also men employees, who can't afford to do or can't choose that restaurant because it's inaccessible or that time is not okay. So we have to be very, very conscious about those things as well, that people who just participate in that kind of gatherings, they make connections, could lead to mentorships or opportunities. But we are also making sure that there's a larger group where we are trying to make inclusivity. So for all leaders, for us, working, evolving in a homogeneous environment, it needs a lot more role models, and it's a by practice. And we'll also have to make sure that there is a commitment from within, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And maybe I can add to that, Ranjini. Um, you know, we, there is, like Abhishek mentioned, a host of programs which enable a person to become aware of their own biases. I think, and there's a term that goes that says, if you're aware, if you're self-aware, half the battle is won there. So I think that exists, and there is one checkpoint which I have personally felt is very important, especially when we talk about talent acquisition per se, is that when you're putting a person through an interview process, we ensure that our interview panel is diverse, even if it's a panel sitting together or it is a stepwise interviewers. So what that does is that kind of systematically reduces bias. It might not cut off completely. There could be still some facets, like Ranjini mentioned, but it systematically reduces the chances of a biased decision. So that one, it may not sound a very fancy intervention, but this is something that works to kind of ensure that biases are minimum.
Thanks, Deepti. Unconscious bias, it is not only restricted to one particular gender, it is for both the genders. So continuous training on unconscious bias will actually help kind of reduce, and putting in practices or some workflow which helps in reducing the bias. So thanks for giving us a idea about unconscious bias and what you do to reduce unconscious bias in your organization. I have a lot of questions which have flowed in, so I'm going to jump to the question section right now. So I have Kajal Srivastava asking, every company is working for diversity and women these days. How is Honeywell's effort different? Abhishek, do you want to take this question?
Sure. Again, I will say this is a very big thing for Honeywell, right? And as I said, this features in your ESG report too. So if you really see from a ESG report perspective, many a times corporation wants to publish something which customer wants to see it. But if you really see the commitment from top on the ESG report of Honeywell, you will find appropriate informations about diversity and inclusion. Not only about this, but also talking about the different platforms which we have been providing across organization. The another element is lot of people are participating, lot of employees are part of driving this agenda. So it's not about Honeywell as an organization or management wants to drive, but we have made this possible along with the help of each employee across the organization to drive this agenda. So what I will simply say is, it's gone into every manager, every employee perspective. The another element which I will say is, and you will find this on even internet, it is one of our fundamental principle, right? The moment the culture gets defined of the organization, we do have defined 8 behavior and 3 fundamental principle, and this stands out there. So it's not about some leaders suddenly came up and started talking about DNI in different forums, or since there is an International Women Day, so we started talking about DNI kind of initiatives. But if this starts featuring in ESG report, if this starts featuring into the 3 fundamental principle and 8 behavior, which is a DNA of Honeywell, that means that we are living and breathing DNI. And I believe when each employees start breathing and living the DNI thing or any other agenda for that matter, that itself is a differentiator, right? So I will strongly say that since this is the agenda of every employee inside Honeywell, that is one thing which differentiates us with the rest of the people.
Thanks, Abhishek. Um, the next question is from Divya Sharma. How does Honeywell ensure work flexibility for women? Deepthi, do you want to take this question?
Sure, sure. I think we take care of flexibility in many forms and not one, right? It could be flexibility when it comes to, how, when do you want to start your work, what time, if you're supporting a certain region or a country from a business standpoint, we allow that flexibility to kind of, operate at a certain time. So that's one. The other flexibility that we offer is also in terms of if someone, let's say, a diverse candidate wants to pursue a higher education, right? So what kind of leaves, what kind of preparations are required, what is the time out that a person needs? So that's a policy driven flexibility that is given to a person, who or who wants to aspire for a higher education. So that's the second kind of thing. The third, I would say, is more pandemic driven, and I would not call it specifically for diversity that came in, which kind of has made overall our organizations think about uh, hybrid workplace, right? You might are required to come to office for collaboration, for meetings, and there are at times wherein you can operate, from a headset from your home as well. So I think that is more industry specific flexibility that we follow. So I think these three aspects is something that Honeywell kind of helps not only women, I would say, but the other employees as well, to ensure that there is a level of work-life balance that people have.
Thanks, Dikti. Um, Tina's Ahmed. Uh, Often we miss out on the role of mid-level managers in helping women in the workplace. How do we train them? Uh, Ranjini, do you want to take this question?
I'll take it. It was interesting, so I'll take it. I just wanted to give that perspective that we need to look diversity through a different lens if we need to drive a business transformation, right? And for us, diversity is one is gender, but if you see our country in the diversification in our country is at its max. I don't think any other country comes with that, right? Be it culture, be it different regions, be it language, be it thoughts. So I think I mean, if we can train, we train actually even in our own teams. We look at this diversity, which just not brings the gender, it also brings the other forms of diversity. And not everyone sees the thing the same way. And that's a good thing. I think as a team, we need to respect and leverage those different perspectives if we want to achieve our goals and tackle the tough challenges. So, at the middle management level itself, it's like the rubber meets the road, where a lot of these issues get thrashed out. So here the diverse teams have maximum, in fact, and they can embrace different perspectives and collaborate, clearly bringing out innovative solutions. And plus tapping into the best thinking of a wide array of people, which is going to become more important as problems become more complex and competition increases and the pace of just how everything accelerates. And I also saw some question on whether on the high diversity do you see benefits. Certainly I see benefits. I can tell you there's something called as a diversity dividend, and it's based on a strong correlation between the financial performance and the company's makeup. And specifically, it is found that these diverse companies, and including all kinds of diversities included, they are like 20 to 30% more likely to outperform their peers. So personally, I'm very convinced, and as well I see from the teams and my own teams in the middle layer as well, that we harness this power of these differences actually, which we think we can achieve almost anything together.
Sure. Thanks, Ranjini. Um, Shweta Gupta, she's asking, it is easy to hire women and not to retain them. What policies does Honeywell have in place to help women stay motivated? Abhishek, do you want to take this question?
I think some of these has been answered earlier through Deepti because I think anyone, like, let's not take diversity only, but there should be a cause to be retained in the organization. And the point is, if you are giving a valuable job, if you are giving a meaningful job to individual, the employee will be engaged. The moment the job lost its meaning, I will say the disengagement starts from that day. Now that will further convert into attrition and people moving out, and it's true for all. The additional element which comes with the women colleagues is definitely there are balances between different front at a work front and home front too. And Dipti talked about the flexibility which has been built in the system to support them, right? The another element which I will add, and as a business leader, Rajni is also there who can definitely vouch for it, is Honeywell is a performance-driven company. We don't believe in punch in and punch out. I don't see in 17 years of my career in Honeywell, I've never seen my punch in and my punch out, right? Neither of my team across APAC region. What it matters the most is whether we are really aligned to the objective of the organization and growing it every day or not. And if the employees are committed, whether diverse and non-diverse, I think that's what makes the organization more progressive. So what I will say is meaningful job will help people retain in the organization. For diversity colleagues, definitely there are flexibility built in the organization, and Honeywell is a progressive organization, believes in the productivity, believes in the output coming out of the individual. So we are not measuring what much time people are spending in office. I will invite any of my colleagues wants to add on this particular perspective.
I think meritocracy holds the complete up
Yeah.
to the pinnacle. So fully echo what Abhishek says. I think that just sums it up, Kumati.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks, Ranjani. I'm going to combine two questions here, which is on returnee program. So I think Deepti, you had kind of briefed on the returnee program, but I'll just ask the questions which are put up here. So, what does Honeywell do for returnee women looking for opportunities? Any returnship program? And are there any upskilling courses available for returnee women?
Yeah, Gomti, I think I answered practically the same thing, but I'm happy to kind of go again. Our returnee women program is called Restart. Please look out for the posts that are due to come out, wherein we would want to kind of welcome women who've taken a break back to corporate life. So that's one. We call it Restart, and happy to kind of look at women who are interested to kind of get enrolled under this. The second part is that how do we give them an ecosystem to perform, was what I mentioned about the mentor-mentee relationship, right? So there will be a designated stipulated period wherein you're, given a mentor for the on-the-job training, for you to kind of learn course correct, till the time you kind of get your hands on the completely understand, if there was something that you think it was missed out. So this is what we have it in place for women who have had some career breaks.
Thanks, Deepi. That sums it up. And thank you, all of you. First of all, I would like to thank all three of you for taking out your time and then for taking us through the DEI journey at Honeywell. And it was really exciting to know various initiatives that Honeywell as an organization has taken on DEI. And I would also like to thank the participants, uh, for patiently answering all our questions and then taking us through your journey. Thanks a lot. I would also, with IWD round the corner, I would like to wish all the women out there a happy Women's Day, and I would like to thank Honeywell for having a topic on diversity and kickstarting IWD. Thank you so much. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Kumati.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.